Hello there. Welcome to my top 4 Phantasmal Footsteps Dromai deck tech. Why bring to you a deck that didn't actually win the Pro Quest, unlike 100 other Dromais out there? Well, that's a very good question. I'd rather you didn't ask that. However, I wanted to bring something that was a bit more out of the norm, with a little bit of spice. And you know what they say? Variety is the spice of life. Before I jump into the deck, I would just like to quickly mention how much fun this tournament actually was. It was hosted at Mox in the Hole, an LGS that anyone would be happy to be at. Honestly, shout out to them, really good time. The pricing was like mind-blowing and spread really evenly so that everyone got a good share of at least something. Everyone there was fun to play against, interact with. Every game I had was just absolute enjoyment. I'm so happy I found this game. It's just awesome. I also won a Judge Pack 2 in the random prize draw. I would love to say I earned it, but well, I didn't, but I got it anyway, so deal with that. I will be showing a video of me opening said Judge Pack at the end of the video for all of you pack junkies, myself included. I'll start off by going over the equipment, as every deck tech does. I'll try to do it as quickly as possible because you've all seen all of this before, except maybe one or two things. So yeah, the Crown of Dominion, everyone runs that this day. Flamescale Furnace, everyone runs it. Nala and Gloves, standard sideboard card. Wave Reality, also pretty standard. The Skull Cap, that's in here for the matchups that I want to block out a lot. So that's Azalea, for example. And the Skull Cap being able to block twice is something that I valued over the Mulligan of the Crown of Providence. Worked out well in the day, so maybe worth testing more. When it comes to Ghostly Touch, I am running a lot of Phantasm attacks in this deck, as you'll soon find out. It therefore would be a crime to not run Ghostly Touch, as I'd just be throwing away resources for nothing. One quick thing to mention as well is I did mean to bring Seeker's Mitts to the tournament. I just forgot it, and well, then I couldn't find one on the day, but it also didn't hurt me, so take from that what you will. Now onto the feet. This footwear has a very strong tie to the Phantasm attacks in this deck, but has many other useful applications as well, which I think justified my reasoning for playing over Snapdragon Scalers. Snapdragon Scalers is still probably superior, but I just found this to be more fun. It's definitely a different playstyle and suits more kind of the way I wanted to play the deck. So I'll just go quickly over the reasons why I like Phantasmal Footsteps. Let's just get that highlighted up here for you all. So reason number one, it can more efficiently cover breakpoints that normally require 2 cards to block. So say they're coming in with a Snatch for 4, that usually requires 2 cards from hand, and you don't really get anything back for it. But now you can block with 1 card from hand, block with the Phantasmal Footsteps, pitch a red for the Phantasmal Footsteps, so you make an Ash, you cover that breakpoint, and you also just keep that card in deck for later. So if it's a Tome, for example, you can use that to block if you really, really need to. This did come up in testing, it just didn't come up on the day, but it does help kind of mitigate a little bit that problem of not being able to block with Tome when you kind of really need to. It also allows me to make Ash whenever I need it, basically. Like if I draw a sand cover with no Ash, I just block with the Footsteps, make the Ash, and then I use the sand cover, and that can all be done in response to the same attack. With more Mechanologist blasting around, Footsteps lets you give armor to T-Bone at 0 cost yourself, unless you really want to. In rare cases, it can help cover Dominate attacks as well. Yes, you have to lose the Footsteps in most cases, but this actually came up against Azalea on the day. You have to weigh up if it's worth giving up the Phantasmal Footsteps or not to cover up that attack. Now these points, they're all a bit of icing on the cake. The real reason I chose to run this card was the regaining of an action point when an illusionist attack action you control is popped by Phantasm. Tome of Imperial Flame makes this really, really easy to pay for now, especially in line with Flamescale Furnace. The illusionist attacks complement the Tome by giving you a more aggressive output on your Tome of Imperial Flame turns. Dromai is generally considered to be the best deck of the format right now, so most decks are respecting her by throwing in 3 to 9 poppers, even if it's not a heavy popper deck, and playing out an illusionist attack action at the start of your turn, like a Dunebreaker Senpai. It gives your opponent a tough decision. Do they use their Command and Conquer to block for 5 and make me pay a resource, or do they take the 5 and then hold it for a potential dragon that's not guaranteed? Problem with that line though is that I would often hit with a Dunebreaker, then come in with a Spear of Surreality, and then at this point, my opponent has given another dilemma, because if they don't block, they may get absolutely no value from that Command and Conquer because there's no guarantee that I'm actually going to finish off with a dragon. It basically complicates my opponent's decisions and leaves the door open for them to make mistakes. Several times in the day, my opponent used their 1 popper to blow up a Dunebreaker Senpai, for example, and then I would just follow up with several dragons and not have to worry about the popper. The play patterns just work really nicely with the deck, even on turns when you don't see your Tome of Imperial Flame. If you've got an arsenal, you play out, say, a Dunebreaker Senpai, pitch for Furnace, you can then play out another dragon, get an arsenal for turn, and you're good to go. Even if it gets popped, you also get to go again to all your dragons. So it worked really nice. The 3 cards that I played that work well with the Phantasmal Footsteps are the Doombreaker Cenopai, the Spears of Surreality, and the Miraging Metamorph. Doombreaker Cenopai is basically a better version of Spears of Surreality, but they almost always do the same thing. Both are safe chain starters with the footsteps. Even if they're your only attack that turn, if your opponent pops them, you're happy because you're more than likely getting better value out of your dragons later in the game. And obviously if they blow up your Doombreaker, you get an extra Ash from pitching it. They're all Ash positive as well, which is really, really important. It means you rarely struggle to make Ash with the deck. Miraging Metamorph also works really well in the deck. A ridiculously good chain ender, because if you get to the end of a chain without getting something popped, your opponent does not have a popper and is staring down 7 damage that they have to actually block or just take. On some turns, especially in the late game, your opponent has to pop the Metamorph, meaning it has now become a chain starter. This is true against decks like Brute and Guardian. They can't just take 7 against you, so they will pop it, which means you get your action point back with the footsteps, you get your counter on the ghostly touch, and your dragons all get go again. So you're always demanding 2 cards from hand basically when you see one of these attacks, and that's not something that someone like Bravo can basically keep up with. The dragon package is all fairly standard as well. I've got 3 Asvalai, 3 Chromai, 3 Kyloria, 3 Miragai, 3 Yenderai, 1 Dominia, 2 Necria, 3 Uvia, 3 Themai, and we have the 1 Tumultai down here in the side. Don't run Vincerkai at the minute because of Hornet Sting, however, that has now changed, so maybe it's time to test that back in. And obviously I don't play Optimi. If you saw my last absolute box office smash, you'd know why. I'll go over the generic attacks now. So we've got 3 Ravenous Rabble. This just lets you block with 3 cards, swing with a 0 for 4 in most cases, and then attack with your whole board. Really good. Also good Codex target because, again, it lets you swing with your whole board if you have one. I'm only on 2 Sweeping Blow because this just felt like a really nice ratio. We don't rely on it for Ash as much now because of Tome, but we don't always see Tome when we want it, and having more Ash is never really a bad thing. I'm only on the 2 Billing Mirage. It's a great card. I really wanted to fit 3 in. I just couldn't find the space for it. It's awesome in the mirror. The 3 Commander Conquerors is very standard. I'm only on 2 Enlightened Strike because I like copying people, and it just kind of felt right playing 2. 3 just doesn't work well with your Tome turns, but E-Strike's still a really good card, really versatile, feels great in the mirror because it can clear any dragon you like. Against Azalea 2, they red and ledger you, just hit them back for 7. And then playing 3 red dust up and 2 blue dust up. The 3 red dust up I would say is standard, but a lot of lists have been cutting that or putting it to 2. I liked it at 3 still. I actually did mean to play it at 2, but because I forgot my mitts, I had an extra slot, so I just chucked in another dust up. Playing 2 blues on the main board, aka the 2 blue dust up, felt really good, really consistent, and I've stolen this from Guy's list, so it works really well. Great in the mirror, great into decks where you have to block out a lot and just swing back because you can get a lot of value out of that Ash Ring. Further defensive cards, I'm playing 3 Sink Below, 3 Fate Foreseen, and 3 Sand Cover. The Fate and the Sink are fairly standard. I'm seeing a lot less players play the 3 Sand Cover. This is one that varies quite a bit, but I absolutely love this card. I think playing the Phantasmal Footsteps build helps a lot with the Ash generation. But yeah, playing 3 makes the Azalea matchup so much better. And you also play a lot better into decks like Guardian when they go for a Dominate. You can just kind of get rid of that. I had a few games where my opponent would come in with a CNC. I'd have like 2 cards in hand. They're like, oh, I'm going to empty the hand. I'd think for a bit, and then just play the Sand Cover from Arsenal. Take 2 damage. Felt really good. But yeah, Sand Cover has covered my ass more times than I can possibly recount, so I like playing 3. Other cards to mention are the 1 copy of Burn Them All. How times change. Before Tome, I would never have dropped this from 3, but now I see the merit in doing so. 1 felt really good, because you only ever really need it in the late game, so you can just keep pitching it. Only having 1 let me play out more immediately aggressive hands as well, especially on Tome turns. Like, you really want to make as much use out of those 3 free resources as you can, and Burn Them All doesn't really fit into that. So you want to kind of limit the cards that don't play well in those Tome turns. But yeah, we also just don't need as much as we used to. The slower matchups are now generally favoured for Dromai anyway. Into Bravo, we've now got the Chromai Dust if you want to go that route as well. So the 3 Burn Them All, it's just not really that necessary. It's still nice to have, and it did do a lot of good work on the day. But yeah, playing 1 felt really good. Let me fit in a lot more aggressive attacks into the deck, and I didn't feel like I was losing out on much. if we take a look at the sideboard here, I'm only playing the 1 copy of Remembrance. I hate playing this card because it makes for some really clunky hands in Dromai. So playing 1 felt really nice because it really helps you mitigate the bad hands, but you do still need that 1 copy, I think. 1 is absolutely fine for Bravo now too, and in the mirror, I haven't needed more than 1 yet. The mirrors that I did play always ended before it was kind of getting to that Remembrance stage because you're always just chipping down at each other. I never found that, yeah, I needed more than 1. But then again, I'm not the best player. The Time Slap Potion is in here for the Ghostly Touch play. Basically, instead of 2 Chromai Dusts, I'm running Ghostly Touch and Time Snap because I have to justify all those Phantasm attacks, not just dying for no reason. That completes the deck overview. Let me know if there are any questions you have on certain cards, etc. I'll now talk about the Pro Quest itself. So my matchups were round 1, that was a win against Riptide. This was really unfortunate because it was against my friend who normally plays Azalea. However, we'd both been playing Riptide in the weeks up to it and kind of hyping Riptide up, and he's just a really fun hero to play. So I convinced him a few days before to play Riptide, and of course, round 1, he gets matched into me on Dromai, so that was really funny. He was not happy. He actually did quite well that day anyway, so once Dromai goes, I think Riptide's in a good spot. My round 2 was a win against Dromai as well. My opponent struggled for Ash basically all game. He was on a lot of Remembrance, and like he opened some in his first hand, and he just kind of never got going. He also didn't see a lot of his dragons. So the game lasted maybe only 8 or so turns because I got up at basically a board of like 8 dragons, like 2 Miragais, 2 Chromais, some Asvalais, Yenderais, and he just had like double his life as well at this point. So he just scooped. Round 3 was a win against Azalea. This was a game where I just fatigued out the Azalea. I was fully blocked out when I wasn't presented with a dominated arrow, and it just meant that I finished the game with about 10 life left when they were fatigued, so it was quite comfortable. But I think my opponent definitely got unlucky because they go for a Rabble into my Asvalai on 1 turn and they reveal a blue Bolton Shot, so my Asvalai stays alive. And then the next cycle comes around and my opponent uses the Bracers of Belief. He pops them and he reveals the same blue Bolton Shot again, which was, well, it was unfortunate for him, but it's funny for me. Round 4 was a win versus Bravo. I started this game off really strong, went first. My turn was crack the gold, play a Rake the Embers, play Pass the Mirage, so I had 1 spare Ash left over as well. About the middle point of the game, he started playing a lot of pressure. I think he came up with a Starstruck for 10, which I blocked 9 on. He then pummeled, but I had a D-React, and that kind of swung it back in my favour. And throughout the whole game, he didn't really clear my Passing Mirage. So I just kind of, no matter what happened, would always swing back for 3 with my Yenderai that I had up. Eventually, I had a disgusting turn of something like Chromai with like Miragai and Pass Mirage still up. 4 other dragons that didn't really have on-hits. I then hit with a CNC because he'd been holding his hand. He had to then block it, and then I hit with a Ghostly Touch to empty the hand. And he just conceded after that turn because he couldn't clear my board, and he was on like sub 10 life as well. So after this win, I knew I was locked in for top 8. But round 5 was a loss against Katsu. This was against my friend Dan. He ended up winning the event and did a deck tech, which I shall link below for you ninja enthusiasts. I swear he plays like 12 copies of Ancestral Empowerment. This resulted in him beating me. We've practiced this matchup a lot together, so I have a lot of experience into Katsu, but not since the tome came out, and my game plan is not quite solidified yet. I've not quite figured out what I'm doing in that matchup. He also plays Warmonger's Diplomacy into me, which really hurts sometimes when you're trying to race, you're neck and neck, and then you just have to take an off turn because you've got loads of dragons in hand, or you maybe take a bit of damage to play out Tomotai, and he Warmongers you. It's like, ugh. Round 6 was against another Katsu, and I lost this one as well. There's just another ninja just slicing through me. We were toe-to-toe until about the 30 life mark. I then draw 2 awful hands full of like D-Reacts, a Femai, a Tomotai, and I can't justify playing any of them. I can't even play the Tomotai. So this just leaves me so far behind that I try and pivot to Fatigue, but I couldn't see the game out. He didn't have much left in deck, but I also had 0 life, so it didn't matter. We then go into top 8, and in top 8, I get matched into my 3rd Katsu in a row. This is the guy that beat me in round 6. However, this time, I get the last laugh. Got my revenge. He makes me go first, and I just get to set up really nicely. Get plenty of Ash, big 5-card hand, and his first turn is just not that big, because Katsu needs quite a bit of grave set up to have their big turns. Like, he didn't have any Dishonors in grave, no Flusterfist, nothing like that. Early on as well, he is forced into popping his Breaking Scales and his Breeder's Rider Boots without getting the value of the block from them as well. So like there's a few kind of unfortunate inefficiencies there. And it's a really close game until I get a turn where I've kind of got a Dromai, Aswai, and Ashwing up, and he basically has to take a turn clearing them, which gives me a full 5-card tome hand in which I play out my Tomotai and I blow up his mask. And I also have a few other things left over, so it's just like a really big turn. Eventually I get him down to 1 life, and I'm on quite a high life still as well. I draw 2 Aswais in my hand, so I just block out, keep the 1 Aswai, play it and kill him. So that was a really intense and close game, but luckily came out the win in that one. In top 4, I get matched up into my 4th Katsu in a row. This is Dan again. I lose because he's just a team killer. This game is much closer than the round 5 match though. At one point I have a board of like Dromai, Aswai and Necria, which I was really confident I could kind of see that one out, but he clears it really efficiently. We keep trading. I eventually get him down to 2 life, and when I drop I see my Aswai and I burn them all, so I know that if I can keep those 2 cards I just auto-win the game. I'm also at about 15 life, so I'm praying he can't do 21 plus damage because I've got 2 3 blocks in hand as well. But he has an Art of War turn with full Dishonor combo, and he comes at me at the end of the chain with a Dishonor for 5, and I'm on 4 life. I've already given him 2 cards at this point. He has 2 cards left in hand, and I know he plays Razor Reflex, and I'm like, this could be Razor Reflex. So I could either give him the Burn Them All and the Aswai and live on like, I can't do the maths in my head right now, but live on like 2 life for the rest of the game, or take the risk of giving him a Burn Them All, taking 2 damage, being Dishonored, playing out my Aswai, taking him down to 1 life, and then taking a card from his hand to block it, and then see if I can win from there. I decided to go with the latter, and he did have Razor Reflex, and he killed me. So I died in Dishonor, but I didn't get to feel the shame for that long. They say every cloud has a silver lining, and for me it was confirmation that no matter what happened for the rest of the day, I did not have to play against another Katsu. That being said, I do have to work on figuring that matchup out, because I do think now with Tome, it's definitely 50-50 matchup. Anyway, that is it for the deck tech. If you want to question any of my sketchy reasoning, please don't hurt my feelings when you do so, and thank you for watching. As a parting gift, here's the clip of me opening my Judge Pack 2. Okay, so gonna open this.
Got it first time.
Okay. So a lot of opening packs as well.
I bend mine when I open it, so be careful.
What's the worst one it can be?
Judge. Like the judge, the adjudicator.
Yeah. Yes.
R4 in this as well.
Let's just remove this bit. Let's remove this bit. Remove this bit.
Let's see it.
Ready.
He got a 3 from the back.
Oh, he's got.